Welcome to Horror Makes Us Happy, the podcast where we ask the question, what is it about horror that makes us happy? Your hosts are Steve Becker and Chris Whitman, and you can find out more about us at horrormakesushappy.com. Our guest is Jessie Seitz, producer, director, and actress, best known for Devotion, Obsidian, and 5. Thank you for joining us, Jessie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for being here.
Is there anything you'd like to plug before we get into the meat of the interview?
Oh, God. I'm actually at the pre-production stage for a couple projects, but can't totally talk about those at the moment. So I guess I will just plug. I recently completed a documentary with Marcus Cook called Beyond Horror, which is the history of red films, so extreme cinema.
Okay.
What was the other term for them? It was something 3, what they use over in Singapore.
Oh,
category 3 or degree 3 or something?
I think it was Cat 3, something like that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Damn, that's good.
We picked that up from, what was it, Dave Jackson?
I think.
No, Dave Jackson.
Was it Dave Jackson? Okay.
Yeah.
We've talked to a lot of people.
Before we get started, a little information both for you and the listeners. Some trigger warnings. We're going to be talking about horror movies, which could potentially involve anything: murder, rape, suicide, child abuse, F-bombs. So if you're not prepared for that, please take care of yourself and come back when you're ready. In this interview, we'll be asking 3 sets of questions covering your childhood, teenage years, and adulthood to find out what it is that you like about horror. The idea being that if we interview enough people, we might find some interesting common themes, but also might find some unexpected themes as well, which could be interesting. We're coming at the topic from multiple angles because sometimes that triggers memories that you have forgotten about. But that being said, it's not meant to be a therapy session, so if there are any questions you don't want to answer, just say I'll pass on that one and we'll move on. So, starting with childhood, what would be some of your earliest memories of horror-related stuff from childhood?
Well, the first horror movie that I ever saw was Jaws, and I was probably 2.5, 3 years old. And I do remember back pretty far. I've been blessed with a pretty good memory, but
I was going to say, at least you may not remember it because it was so long ago, but guess not. Lucky you.
Yeah, it's a little murky around 2 and 3, but somewhere approximately around that time.
Just like the bloody water. Go ahead.
Yeah. And it scared the shit out of me. I mean, it really FUKT me up pretty good. I was at the babysitter's and she had one of those.
I can't imagine why.
Right? It's only slightly intimidating of a movie. And, I was in my babysitter's living room and she had one of those giant televisions that functioned also as a piece of furniture that they no longer make. And, just sitting there in the middle of the afternoon and that damn shark, coming up on the boat. And of course, that infamous scene. And so it was kind of actually it developed into a bona fide phobia, which took me a long time to actually get over. And by phobia, I mean that I would actually get tunnel vision if I saw the poster art for it.
Wow.
It legitimately it really messed with me psychologically, which of course there's all kinds of things that can go into that from doctors and everything, but yeah, it was a real phobia. And I've been slowly just trying to get over it because obviously working in the horror world, you run across pictures of that shark a lot.
So was it a phobia of sharks, of beaches, of water, of that particular movie?
It really, towards the end of it, I'd say it was very much centered on that specific movie, but I would be very uncomfortable with just images of sharks in general, and I wouldn't be able to go into any aquarium spaces or anything like that, and did not like the beach, or anything. So
right.
it definitely spread out into other areas of my life, and I think it's just one of those weird things that you see it at a young impressionable age, you know,
Mhm.
and then in your brain it just starts to like relate that as like, you know, that is everything that is possibly wrong with the world condensed down into one image.
Yeah, yeah, it's like a
And
subconscious trigger. Like it makes me wonder. Would that mean that you have that subconscious trigger where your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are almost battling with each other over the fact that like this is water, we hate this. No, no, I've been told it's good. No, no, this is water, we hate this. But was it just
yeah,
specifically associated with salt water? Like, were you okay with fresh water, like going to a lake or a river?
when I was young, I was not. When I was really young, I had actually issues like with even swimming pools and stuff as like a result of it, which is of course like, you know, you say it out loud and it sounds like totally ludicrous if you didn't, you know, experience that as like a kid. But like, yeah, I really hated like swimming pools. I hated lakes, rivers, like anything. Like it was completely irrational, you know. But my
Mhm.
brain was just so like, ugh, you know, this is where this evil lives, you know.
No, I can totally relate. I saw Jaws when I was a kid too, and I really didn't like showers. I still did
Yeah.
them because you have to shower, but yeah, every time it was like we had a dent in the bottom of our tub for some reason. I don't know why, maybe tree roots or something. But I just like in my childish mind, I looked at that like that's a shark trying to bust through the bottom of the tub with its nose.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, I wasn't even going to bring it up, but like the shadowy part of the bathtub, like where the shower curtain would be like over the bathtub water, I was scared of that when I was like 4 or 5 because I'm like, that's
Yeah,
where Jaws is, and that shadowy, murky part of this fucking bathtub in a trailer, you know?
almost like your subconscious mind like clings on to any uncertainty. Like that's the thing. That's got to be it. It's the only thing
Yeah,
it can be.
that's where he is, you know. So and weirdly enough, it also translated into not being able to go into video stores for a long time.
Well, yeah, because the box
Because
art is there.
the box art is there, or like somebody would be watching it on like the TV overhead, you know, and it just like it was weird, and it really affected like a lot of avenues of my life of, up into adulthood. Like certain things like got better, but there were still certain things that would like just make my heart race, and like I said, I would still be getting like tunnel vision and stuff. And so I just like slowly started like immersing myself with it. And now I'm fine, and I actually like enjoy the movie now, but it's taken like forever. So yeah, that was my first horror film, like affected my entire life for a long time. Um, the first one that I actually enjoyed that didn't traumatize me to death was Gremlins.
Okay.
And that was definitely a much more child appropriate thing to be watching.
I mean, it's practically a Christmas movie.
Right. You know, and I remember it was
Wasn't
like,
it?
It was,
yeah,
yeah. It took place at Christmas. Like, look, if
Yeah.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie, Gremlins is a
yeah,
Christmas movie.
yeah, it's totally a Christmas movie. And you know, it still was like scary, but it was like a fun scary, you know. And so
Mhm.
I think that's what really made me start to like love like spooky stuff for sure was Gremlins. And so I saw that probably like around 5 or 6. So
Mhm.
much more age appropriate, better time to be taking that all in.
Right. So, Jaws, Gremlins, anything else jump out at you as being memorable from that time of your life?
Like literature or just other things.
The as far as like being a really young kid, those are the ones that like really stick with me. I actually couldn't wasn't allowed to watch horror movies for a big part of my life. My
I was gonna say,
parents went
after
through
your
like
response to Jaws, I can understand why.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it wasn't. It's a Jaws thing. My parents went through this like crazy religious kick, and so like you know anything that was remotely horror related was forbidden. And so I would still have to like I would still sneak stuff over at like friends' houses and everything. But like we didn't even celebrate like Halloween for like 10 years in our household and a bunch of ridiculous things like that. So
Not even All Saints Day or Hallows Eve.
yeah, no, that was it was all out off the table, which was very depressing as a kid. I missed out on the good trick or treating years for sure.
Oh,
Were you Jehovah?
No, no, straight up Christian.
Oh,
But I think that the 80s and 90s, you know, there was a lot of that like satanic panic and like junk like that
hmm
going around,
yeah, that's
and
true.
they just really succumbed to that.
Hmm. Okay.
yeah, it was everywhere.
Yeah.
We would define the difference between childhood and adolescence somewhere around like middle school, like
Like
fifth
11 or
and sixth
12.
grade. Yeah. Were you participating in Halloween before that?
My last Halloween I had as a kid was when I was 6 years old. And
Okay.
then I didn't get to celebrate it again until after I was like out of my parents' house.
Did you enjoy Halloween as a child?
Oh, yes, I loved it immensely. It was definitely like something that was really fun and a positive experience for me. So it was a pretty like negative like thing to not like be able to like participate in it for sure.
Yeah,
Did you
that
have a
sucks.
favorite? Did you have a favorite costume?
Yeah. My last one I ever got to do was I was a black cat, and I put like a lot of effort into it. So
Go
yeah,
out with a hurrah. That's nice.
it was definitely like my favorite when I was little.
Nice. Was it the process of getting dressed up that you enjoyed, or the getting the
All of it
candy?
I really loved. I mean, there was, there's like a certain amount of magic to it, right? I really liked, the ghouls and goblins and like running around the neighborhood and getting like candy and just all the just fun little things that were like associated with it. I loved like witches. I thought witches were like super cool, and of course they're up all around on Halloween. And yeah, just everything like about it like really like spoke to me. Still
Okay.
does. My house is like one giant like, you know, tomb to Halloween now, but
Make it a
as a
cross
kid,
guard.
yeah, I identified with it, heavily and stuff. So, yeah, it was I don't know. I mean, to me, I think you kind of on a deeper sense
Mhm.
most people know who they are, I think, at a pretty young age. And I think, like, the things that you're drawn to as a child, because you're coming to them very innocently, and you're just naturally drawn to certain things,
Mhm.
are really good indicators as to what you'll probably, like, be into as an adult. And so,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, just like kind of like looking at my childhood, I think it's kind of sort of a testament to that. It's like, I definitely like came back around to this type of stuff.
Just going back to the Halloween thing for a second before moving on to some of the other questions. Did you have a least favorite costume?
Oh no, I liked all of them when I was little.
Okay.
So
Nice.
but I only got to dress up like a handful of times.
Okay. Um, so was there anybody else? I mean, you mentioned the babysitter was the one that had put on the movie. Did you have any friends or family or relatives who were into horror when you were a kid?
Oh yeah. The rest of my family, outside of my parents, were very into horror movies and Halloween stuff. Both
Mm-hmm.
of them. So my grandma was like a huge horror movie person. My cousins were like all into that stuff. I mean, they had like all the masks and monster toys and the VHS tapes and. They had HBO growing up, so there was always some kind of like crazy thing to watch on that.
So would you like get to like go over there for the weekend or spend a week over at your aunt's or cousin's house or something like that, and you'd be like, yes, get to watch horror movies now.
Sometimes, sometimes that was actually even still like pretty like monitored, like even when I was a kid. So I had to be pretty sneaky about it. It normally wasn't until like I got to like stay the night at friends' houses that I got to start like watching horror movies again.
Mm-hmm.
And because I could do it in secret,
Mm-hmm.
with no one
Yeah.
ratting me out. So, and then that's when I got to see things like Critters, and all those like little fun, like weird creature movies, and really into those like for the longest time. And then when I
Okay.
hit junior high, I had really started like liking slasher films, and it started with Scream. I was like the perfect age when Scream came out, to be like really interested in that movie.
Mhm.
And when I finally got to see it, then it made me like go back and look at like all these other like slasher films, and I became a huge fan of like Halloween and Friday the 13th and all those classics, and that was like a really fun time. So that was about junior high when I was really getting into those. And then I also really loved Alfred Hitchcock, and he was sort of like this very interesting, almost like neutral ground, because obviously some of his movies are horror, but they're like classic films.
Yeah.
So like that stuff was like allowed, and I really, really got into him.
Was Hitchcock childhood or teenage years?
Junior high, yeah. So probably like 11, starting around 11.
Okay. I wrote some of that stuff down. We'll come back to that. Going back to the childhood for a minute. You mentioned your parents, your grandparents, your cousins were all into horror movies and stuff like that. So I'm guessing that, at least with them, there was some sort of, positive association with horror movies. It's not like they teased you about it or anything like that. No negative experience in those terms. The only negative, it sounds like, was your reaction to seeing Jaws.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was the only which no one could have helped that because that's a scary movie.
And because you weren't ready for it at that age too.
You know what you should have done? Dude, just watch the sequels. That will totally break the fear for you 100%. Once you get to Jaws 4, you'll be like, this is the dumbest shit I have ever seen. It's roaring. That shark is roaring like a lion, and because they stuck a flashlight with a blinky thing in it, inside of it, now it can explode. This is dumb.
Funny thing about that, I am actually a huge, huge advocate of Jaws: The Revenge.
Oh, come on, really? That's the worst one.
I love it. I freaking love it. And
you
I'm actually
Michael Caine was in it.
Oh yeah, Michael Caine, who's never actually even watched it.
Really? That's right. I forgot. That was just like a paycheck money movie for him or something.
He's just like, no, I've never watched that shit.
He bought a house with it. That's what it was. He wanted to buy a house, so he made a movie.
Yes.
Made that movie. And I'm a film programmer for theaters when they're open, like ye old movie theaters.
Oh, yeah. So you're familiar with the Christies, huh?
Yeah, the Christies and just all of that. And so so for programming, I am always trying to come up with something like clever. And I was like, okay, we've got to start showing Jaws: The Revenge over the July 4th weekend. And my boss at the time hadn't seen that one, and they looked at the stills and they're like, "Is this a real movie?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a real movie."
This is not a Jaws knockoff. They actually made. Yeah, no, it's in the canon.
I'm like, this is real. It's legitimately a Jaws movie. And I thought I was being super clever because I'm like, oh man, this could be the next Room, only with Jaws, and it's funny and it buried a franchise and ha ha ha, and oh my god, it was the biggest joke that no one else even cared for.
So you were trying to do a study of Jaws: The Revenge on a so bad it's good angle, like you said, same level as The Room, and everyone else is just like, this is just a bad movie.
Yeah, they're just like, this is a bad movie. Did that shark just growl at me? And I'm like, oh my god, it's wonderful. And seriously, to this day, I'm just like, no, I'm gonna get people on board. This is gonna be the next cult thing, Jaws: The Revenge. I was like, everybody shows Jaws over July 4th weekend. I'm like, no, we got to show the last one. And so I always push for it. The legitimacy of that terrible, wonderful movie.
So did anybody come see it or no?
Only a handful of people even came to talk. It was honestly one of the worst attended things I'd ever programmed.
I mean, yeah.
They just weren't down for it. I was like, come on, you can drink at the theater and watch this ridiculous shark movie. And they were just not having it. I was like, okay, this will catch on. Okay, it'll have its day in the sun.
I mean, I was about to say, you could have a drinking game with this movie with every time there's either a plot incontinuity or something that doesn't make sense in real life, like the shark roaring, Michael Caine's shirt. Shirts usually don't dry seconds after you emerge out of the ocean.
Or the fact that it's just the premise is just so wonderful. I mean, it's the shark recognizes her, and it's oh yeah, that's that shark,
Yeah. Followed her from Amity, New York to the Bahamas, was it?
To the Bahamas, yeah. It came all the way to the Bahamas to find her, I'm like, it's impressive. Come on, but yeah, it's hard to sell people on that one, but It's kind of like my little submission in life. So
Yeah, didn't that have some crossover with the Amityville Horror?
Huh.
did it?
I don't think it did, but holy shit, somebody should do that now. That's what they should. I heard they're going to do a Jaws reboot. They should just like tie in Amityville Horror, and there you go. You got like a cinematic universe.
Well, that's what I thought the reference to Amity. Well, that's what I thought the reference to Amity, New York was about, wasn't it?
No, I think it's just a coincidence, but I never made the connection there. Yeah, it's like, well, there's not multiple horror movies with Elm Street in it, but where I was going with that, Elm Street's a common name, that's why they used it. But no, I think Amity is a real city in New York, and I believe both movies just happened to base themselves there. Funny.
So let's go back to childhood a little bit more. So we mentioned Jaws and
half
Gremlins.
hour on Jaws. No, I'm just kidding.
It's the Jaws podcast.
Yes, right. Dun-dun. Dun-dun. So we've mentioned Jaws and Gremlins. But you didn't really have any other horror memories from childhood, correct?
Yeah, for grade school, it's definitely like a blank spot. I mean, I would see like slivers of things, like so like sliver, like Child's Play. There were clips. Obviously, I was familiar with what that was. Having not even seen the whole movie, but it was on TV like constantly. So I'd see like bits and pieces of it, and I remember a lot of the movie posters, like Night of the Demons always stuck out to me, even though I didn't see it at a young age. Like, I mean, it's such an iconic movie poster, with Angela like all done up and holding her little party invitation. And that was like really burned into my brain, and like very fascinated like by the makeup, like with that. So just, it was like these little like pieces, and I was always like very intrigued, very interested in it, but didn't have access to it. And then as I got a little bit older, started getting more.
That's fine. So did you have any scary dreams as a kid?
Not related to horror. I definitely like had night terrors as a child, but it wasn't ever like related back to anything that I had seen, like in a movie or something like that. And now it's probably like related back to I was later in life diagnosed with like narcolepsy, and you can get like night terrors as like a part of it, because like your brain's sometimes switches over into like sleep mode on you, and you're still kind of conscious and stuff with it. So now we think that that's probably what those were more about. And they were very much like, weirdly enough, like the classic night terrors, growing up and now as an adult, like learning more about what they are. It's interesting that a lot of people have the same hallucinations like when they're in that state. And
like, what were some of yours?
So definitely like the old woman, which is like a common one, like an old woman, like grabbing at me, an old woman standing over the bed, with like kind of like a mangled face, dark figures in the window, visions of like black dogs, which I guess is another very common one. And then like feeling as if my bed was shaking. So that was a quite common one too. And that's like such a weird one, because that's when you actually like feel, and it seems like so real when you're experiencing it. But like ever since I was a child, I would periodically have this thing where it felt like someone was just taking like the edge of my bed and like shaking it like really hard, or that, someone was like walking on my bed, and just like that like sensation. And it's just your brain like pulling this like, whammy on you, and apparently a lot of people who have that condition have the same, images or like sensations with it, which I think is very fascinating.
You ever have any hypnic jerks?
What's up?
Hypnic jerk, it's where like you are just falling asleep and you're just about to finally go unconscious, and then you have a split second moment of feeling like you're falling, which jerks you right wide awake.
Yes, I've like kicked a wall before.
Yeah,
And
that's usually what happens. That's why it's a jerk.
it's like it's so weird, and you're like, why did I freak out so bad that I was falling in a dream and I just like flailed, but yeah, like I get those like all the time.
Yeah, and it always seems to be like as you're just falling asleep too. So like I don't know, like maybe your brain doesn't forgets for a split second how to process the fact that you are falling into unconsciousness, and it's like, whoa, what the hell is happening? It's yeah, I was falling asleep, asshole. That's what I was doing.
It's crazy. So I don't know, maybe it was good that I didn't have too much of like a horror movie influence when I was like experiencing that as a kid, because I'm sure like, it would have been even more terrifying if my brain was more familiar with horror material.
Yeah, that can spawn some primo night terrors.
So you mentioned there was some movie poster or display when you walked into a store had a woman on it, and you liked the makeup. What was that movie again?
Night of the Demons. Yeah, so that movie, just the poster alone, I loved it, and I remember seeing it quite frequently. And then it was really cool because I went on to like actually work with Linnea Quigley and casting her in my film Devotion. And
Nice.
yeah, so it's not Linnea obviously like on the poster, but she plays a really fun role in that movie. So it's kind of like a very full circle type of thing.
She puts lipstick in her boob.
She does. He's got that great like little Bo Peep outfit. I mean, she's fantastic. Linnea is like the best, and she was so much fun to like work with, and just like very sweet, and we still keep in touch like to this day. So that's been really cool. But yeah, it's just funny to think about. It's like, wow, I used to like stare at that poster, and then this person winds up being like in my film. So it was cool.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice. The reason I asked is because, wrapping up the childhood section here, we have two questions. Did horror in your childhood make you happy? And if so, was there anything in particular that made you feel that way? And the two things that you really mentioned were Gremlins and this Night of the Demons, I don't want to say poster, but display, whatever it was. And so the two things that you enjoyed, I guess, were the comedy portion of Gremlins and the makeup. You mentioned you were interested in her makeup in that display, and the one costume, the black cat costume.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving into adolescence then, I had made some notes of the things that you mentioned earlier: Critters, Scream, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Hitchcock, Jaws the Revenge. Is there anything else that jumps out at you as being impacting you in that that frame of your life?
In junior high, I think that the only thing that I would add to that is that I did start reading more like the Ed and Lorraine Warren books, like were starting to really interest me. The stuff that was like, allegedly true hauntings. And
Allegedly.
yeah, allegedly. You grow up and you're like, maybe that wasn't as, legit as you thought when you were 12 years old reading Amityville Horror, But yeah, it's so I started getting into those, and then like R.L. Stine and like Christopher Pike books, so it was like easier material for me to like slip into the house, because it's like, oh, I'm reading, it's like a gray area, right? Like, oh, at least she's like reading a book,
No, what's that book about? The Hellbound Heart? Is it? That's not about hell, is it? No, it's a love story.
It's a love story. So, yeah, I started just, I think that would be like in addition to like, finding those movies, like horror literature, I was definitely starting to like really consume at a high rate in junior high.
Okay.
Cool.
Favorite books?
Favorite books. I did, going back to it, I did love Amityville Horror. It was very scary. I took it to be like very much a real thing, when I read it, and definitely had like an impact on me. And then, anything that R.L. Stine would like churn out, like all the Fear Street, all the Goosebumps books, I just thought were wonderful at the time. And let's see, I slowly starting to get into Stephen King. So that's probably about the time that I read like Pet Sematary and The Shining. and things like that too. And I definitely like really enjoyed those books.
Really got to sit down and read The Shining one of these days because I want to read about that hedge maze because I heard that the way they portrayed it in the TV series was not that good.
Yeah, it's a completely different experience. Like I really love the movie,
Mm-hmm.
the original Kubrick movie, but
Mm-hmm.
the book ends completely differently, and
Really?
yeah, it's a totally different ending, and it's interesting because like Doctor Sleep actually pays homage to that, like the film.
Does it? Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought about Doctor Sleep. I watched it recently, and I'm a fan. I thought it was good.
Yeah, it's I loved it as a film. I really loved the book, Doctor Sleep, but the film did a really good job at giving you some of the things that were like missing from like the first film adaptation of The
Yeah.
Shining.
So were the people who survive on steam kind of vampirish, whatever they are? Were they in the book?
They were in the book for Doctor Sleep. Yeah, they're in the book, but the original ending of the book for The Shining
Mm-hmm.
is brought into the Doctor Sleep movie.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
so spoilers for anyone
yeah.
who doesn't want to hear this. Skip about 30 seconds ahead or whatever. But did the hotel explode in the original book of The Shining?
Yeah. In the original book,
Okay.
the hotel is no more. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah. So in Doctor Sleep, when they go to that like area in the book that Stephen King wrote, it's still like the site of the hotel, but
Uh-huh.
the hotel isn't like there anymore in the book.
Gotcha.
So when they did the movie, the director of that film was like, okay, I want to do justice to the new novel, but I also want to like bring in like the original ending, which was
Okay,
really
yeah, no, that's a win-win. That way he got to do a lot of callbacks. Some of them slightly shameless, but I'm okay with that. They were good. Um, but a lot of callbacks involving the Overlook Hotel, and in a way, bring to film the original ending that should have been from the book, for The
yeah.
Shining. Interesting.
It was cool. It was super, super cool. And the ending of the original book, I mean, it's very horrifying because, like, you also have, like, Jack Torrance, like, trying to, like, rip off his face. Like, there's this whole bit about,
What?
yeah,
That's
like,
not
like
dying of frostbite in a hedge maze. That is differently. That's a different thing.
yeah, totally
What?
different. It's worth a read. It's a trip how intense, like, it really gets and stuff. And,
Of his own face. This is fucking
yeah.
Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, he's like trying
Jesus.
to tear it off, and he's like, "Take the mask off, take the mask off," and he starts like ripping at his own face, and it's crazy, man.
So, what was it that? Well, there's I guess two different ways to approach this. Any of these movies that we've now listed for your teenage years, did any of them actually scare you? And if so, what scared you? Or if not scared you, then what did you enjoy about them?
Oh, I think they all scared me, but I loved it.
Okay.
um, I am actually like weirdly enough like a big scaredy cat of this stuff, even to this day. Like in the theater, I'm I'm that person who screams in the middle of a theater. Like I watched Hereditary and I jumped out of my damn seat when you hear that click sound in the freaking car. Like I gave out of my seat and like yelled. So I get into it. But I love it. So it's kind of like being on a roller coaster, like it's scary, but it's like really fun. And same with like haunted houses. Like I'm the most ridiculous person to take into a haunted house because I will like scream and like hit the person next to me and then start like laughing because it's funny. Um,
I beg to
like
differ. I think you're probably the best person to bring into a haunted house because they lose their they lose their effect after a while. Like, yeah, I've seen all this, and if you can have someone with you that screams at everything and almost gives you back that first time you've been in a house feeling, a haunt feeling.
oh yeah, I mean like I'll scream at like the smoke machine like going off.
Okay, that is
It's like,
everything.
oh, what was that? Oh my god. But I like that feeling, it's that adrenaline, it's that burst of adrenaline. And so I totally love it. And once I started consuming it more, it was just like, just couldn't stop. Now I make those movies. So
Hell yeah.
So when I asked what were you scared by, I mean, you said pretty much everything. It sounded like.
Yeah, I mean, it all tripped me out. I think that really, really breaking it down. I mean, because like I'll get wrapped up in the suspense of anything, but the stuff that like actually like scary to me, like on a deep level, would be things like bear with me here for this explanation, but things that like appear that like shouldn't be there, and I call them like real time scares. So, for example, like Exorcist 3. Have you both seen that?
I
Yes,
have
it's
not.
been a while. That's the one with Brad Dourif, right? Where he gets yellow
Yeah.
eyes and goes
So
all crazy.
there's that beautiful shot where they're in the hospital, and the nurse is like making her rounds, right? And it's a very calm shot, and she's walking back and forth between the rooms, and you kind of get like a jump scare, and you're just like, oh, that must have been what was the setup was for. And it goes back to the same shot where she's just sort of walking back and forth between the rooms. And then she walks out of her room, and then that person just comes like right up behind her, and they're in a sheet with like those like, clippers, and like got her head off. But it happens in like real time to the point where it like almost like takes your breath away, because you're just like, it isn't a jump scare, it isn't cued with the music, it's just like happening like organically. And that stuff is absolutely like terrifying, because it's not going for that like cheap thrill, it's really like getting to you. And so I really love when horror films can like bring that, like somebody just sort of subtly appears like in a window, or like, just kind of is just sort of there all of a sudden. Another great example of it is, even though this isn't, I think, technically a horror film, but it's pretty scary in some parts, but David Lynch's Lost Highway. When Robert Blake like walks like into the room and all the sound goes out, and he's like, "I'm already at your house." I'm like, God, that's like so scary, and it's so simple. It's just a really easy thing, but it's
it's actually the lack of sound that makes it terrifying in that situation. It's not a jump scare where you have a sudden stab of noise. It's everything just went silent, and it almost forces your breath or your lungs to just stop breathing. Like,
you just like hold your breath, and then and he like calls his house, and he's in the house, and I mean it's a total like mind fuck, So I'd say that's the stuff that like is like terrifying to me. But in terms of scares, it's like, I'll scream at everything.
So maybe a better wording is things that aren't telegraphed.
Yeah, I like
the
that.
Unexpected. Like you mentioned Hereditary earlier, that was one of my favorite parts of that whole movie. Was it was almost like an anti-jump scare, where the mother is you just barely see her in the corner of the shadows of the ceiling up there, just like, and there's no noise, no nothing. It's just that thing that shouldn't be there is there, and it scares the shit out of you.
That's so scary. It's so scary. Like I loved Hereditary. I thought that they did an excellent job with that.
Did you have any horror crew, shall we say, during your teenage years that you shared this stuff with?
Yeah, actually, by the time I got into high school, I was in band, and
that's where it all starts. Freaks and geeks in the band.
All the weirdo kids are always in band, So that's where I found like this little tribe of weirdos that loved horror movies. Like I actually had like passion for them, and so they would like lie on behalf of me to my parents and be like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go, see this movie," and really like we were like sneaking out to go see like whatever rated R movie, horror movie together. And
that's so classic.
It was great, but they all had my back. It's like, oh yeah, we totally just watched this like milquetoast piece of crap, but really, watch it like Blair Witch.
We're gonna go watch The Notebook. I like crying.
The Notebook, and then no, we'd go, and then when I'd sleep over at their houses, birthday parties, there'd just be like stacks of horror movies, right? And like we just go through like 4 or 5 a night, because like all of this, I finally like could really tap into it. This is me like 14, 15 years old, and I mean, I just like just ate that shit up.
So you mentioned these stacks of movies. What did you get out of these? What were you enjoying about them?
There was a lot of like just a fantasy element of it, that I really like latched onto. And it wasn't until the later high school years that like I started getting something a little more personal out of them. So there was like the fun, like you get into like just like the classic, right? Like Halloween, Scream, all this kind of stuff. And then after a while, I started finding, exploitation movies. Like when I was like, towards the end of my 15th year, getting into 16, 17. And so, you start watching things like Cannibal Holocaust, or at least I did, right? I say it like it's like a normal thing, but for a high schooler, like when you watch Cannibal Holocaust. But like, yeah, I started like watching more of that stuff and then diving in deeper. And then by the end of high school, the rape revenge films and things like that like really spoke to me because there was like an honesty in them that you just like simply like we're not getting from like other genres of film. And I really appreciated it, and that's actually what made me want to like start creating those movies. And so by the time I was like 18, I was already like with a film company and had started making the stuff like that.
Fuck you. And it's a compliment. That's I'm jealous. It's awesome. 18 and already just. What were you doing with the film companies? Was it like gaff work or special effects makeup?
I started out just like as a PA. I got my start with Wicked Pixel Cinema, which are the people, Eric Stanzi, like known for Scrapbook and Ice from the Sun, that kind of thing. And so I started out just like PA work, but like within a year, I was like co-writing stories and like running like BTS camera, putting together like little mini documentaries like on what we were doing and basically just taking on any and all roles that they would throw at me like at that point. So yeah, I rose up pretty like quick because I knew early on that that's like what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm at that point now at almost 40. So same path. Same page.
No, it takes a minute. Sometimes it takes a hot minute.
It does.
Do you see any common threads between, going back through the things that we talked about? Critters, Scream, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Amityville Horror, the books. Was there any common thread about the things that you enjoyed in these?
I think when I really step back and think about it, the common thing that what I was really getting a lot out of was that they really just allowed for escapism. They allowed you to like address fears, even if those fears were like absurd, in like a safe, controlled environment. They allowed for like elements of fantasy. They allowed for humor, and just kind of like a tap into like your darker side. And I just think that was really appealing to me, because I think that a lot of stuff is very fake in this world. And yeah, sometimes, yeah, that's like fun too. I'm not saying like, obviously, I don't only consume horror movies, but sometimes it's just like, man, this isn't doing anything for me, like I'm not really getting to like, escape into this. I'm not really getting to like learn anything like about myself by watching this. It's just sort of there existing and it's very like vapid, And so I think that that would be the common thing is that these movies just allowed for that escape and like weirdly enough like a safe space to like address like some darker internal things.
Well, that kind of leads into what I was thinking of asking, which was, did you feel a need to escape from the environment you were in, or did you feel that your environment was not a safe environment for some reason?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, that element of it, like I wouldn't feel comfortable discussing like the finer points like right now,
Sure.
but I go into it actually like in the documentary that we just filmed Beyond Horror. But yeah, there was definitely like a lot of stuff that I needed to like escape from. When you're kind of like growing up in a small town in a very religious like household, there's not like a lot of options like for you. So this stuff became very, very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Did the horror movies and books and things like that you were experiencing in your teenage years introduce any new fears or exacerbate any existing ones?
No, no. By the time I hit like high school, I had already been through enough like real life crap
Mm.
that the horror movies weren't like introducing anything new. They were just like coping mechanisms. Like at that
Okay.
point,
Yeah,
yeah.
makes sense.
Okay.
I don't know if we covered this one already, but that brings us to another one, which is: did you ever have any events of actual terror in real life in your teenage years?
Oh yeah, childhood and through yeah, like the teenage years and stuff like that. So enough where it was almost like welcome to see like little movies about like monsters or like clearly like fake killers, like it's like wow, I know that like people can actually be fucked up in like real life, and so the fantasy element of it, just I don't know. It was cool. It was a cool way to differentiate, and to like kind of own fear and to make it work for you rather than against you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if this ties into the stuff that you didn't want to talk about, so you tell us, but was there anything that terrified you as a teen that you wanted to mention or no?
Oh no, not on this particular show, but
Okay.
yeah.
Did you have any scary dreams as a teen?
I still had like night terrors and stuff, but like outside of that, like I didn't really ever have like nightmares, like straight up, outside of like maybe like stress nightmares, like
Okay.
you always dream weird things like when you're stressed out, like
Ooh, did you ever
I
have
can't find.
the work nightmare where you're at work and it's just whatever you do but times 10 million?
Um, More like whatever I do, and it's like not good enough, like.
Yeah, yeah.
Like now being like an FX artist and stuff, like I have these dreams where I'm trying to pull off like complex like effects makeup and no matter what I do it looks terrible, and then everybody's like looking at me like I'm an asshole and like and I'm like, no wait, I can really do this, and they're like, yeah, whatever, you're a hack, like those are the kind of like nightmares I have and that
And
kind
all
of
of a
stuff.
sudden, Glenn Hedrick walks in and he's like, no.
No.
I think you already answered this question, but I'm just confirming. So you said I think it was around 6 years old or something like that, where you stopped celebrating Halloween and you didn't get into it again until you were in your adult years, right?
Yeah.
So no Halloween when you were a teen, then, huh?
No Halloween as a teenager. No.
Oh, sad face. So much candy, so much costume.
I know. I have to like make up for it now.
Right.
Yeah, right?
Okay, so that was the gist of the teenage stuff. Moving into adulthood now, what are some of the most impactful horror related media that you're familiar with as an adult?
It should be good.
Oh, so the things that I like really like, I do like art house horror as a trend. There's some of it I really hate, but most of it I really love. So like we already kind of talked about Hereditary. I really loved The Witch. I thought that was like fucking excellent. It really spoke to me.
Thank you for pronouncing it correctly.
Yes, The Witch. I liked it. It Comes at Night. I thought that was like really awesome and like super intense and weird and very different.
Did they ever reveal what came at night? It comes at night. I think I fell asleep.
It's funny you say that because when I watched it like in the theater, like the movie ends and I'm like, wow, that was like really cool. And then this like kind of white trash couple was like sitting in front of me, and the guy gets up and he's like, well, I don't know what it was, but it never came.
Okay, I thought so. So like, yeah, they kind of left it open ended and to your own imagination. But yeah, you're right. The film was done with very. It was done skillfully the way they did it. Yeah, I don't know what it was,
but it never came. And then he's like, "It's the last time I let you pick a movie."
On the topic of funny things that happen in movie theaters, real quick, and back on the topic of Dr. Sleep, I could not stop giggling because I'm with a friend seeing this movie, and there's someone 2 rows behind us who was snoring. in Doctor Sleep.
Put him right out.
It was one of the most like tense, and it was one of the most tense and scary moments. I just couldn't help but just sit here and chuckle quietly because that's motherfucker, you were sleeping at Doctor Sleep. Oh man,
That's amazing.
yeah.
Maybe he had narcolepsy. You don't know.
Yeah.
maybe.
From all my narcolepsy brethren. It's hard
True.
to stay awake. And then, so that kind of stuff, I think, and then It Follows, I actually really loved going on.
Yeah.
I really,
Have you seen? It came out
Do you
recently.
just like movies that have "it" in the title?
I do, really. That's just my thing right now. It has to have It in the title. Unless it's the movie It, then I don't know.
No counts. Now, have you seen Villains, though? That came out just recently. It has Skarsgård from It, but it also has Micah Monroe from It Follows, and it is really funny. It's very good.
I have not gotten to see that yet, but definitely at the top of the list because I'm like, ooh, I like both so much,
Right? I wonder if that was a happy coincidence. They got the guy from It and the girl from It Follows.
Like, it's gonna blow fans' minds.
All right, so we have Hereditary, Vitch, It Comes at Night, It Follows. What else? Anything else?
Let's see here. Like, I'm always so like I watch like 10 movies at a time, and then I'm always like, oh, what's a movie when I like start.
But again, for this part, we're asking, what do you think is most impactful for you? The things that really stand out to you.
Yeah, things that stand out for you, remembering being impressed by them and or being influenced by them.
Yeah, I think that's like my more recent list, actually. Like what I gave there is probably stuff that in terms of horror. The only thing I would add really quick is and again, it's not traditional horror, but Killing of a Sacred Deer.
I still need to watch that. That looks really good.
It's so good. It's really, really, really good, and it goes into some like super, super dark like territory. It straddles that edge of drama and horror, which always makes for, I think, excellent movie watching. So those are probably like the most impactful.
Is that a Von Trier movie?
No, it's yeah, that one guy. That's not Lars von Trier. I can't think of his name right now, and I feel like terrible about it. But yeah, no, it wasn't Lars von Trier. I actually don't like him. I know I'm probably going to disappoint a lot of people with that, but I really don't like Lars von Trier.
The House that Jack built was good.
I need to see it. I do need to see that one. Like overall, he's just so full of shit. I'm always like so reluctant to put in like another one of his movies because I'm just like, oh my god, like I just can't. I can't.
Well, he is a self-proclaimed Nazi, so there's.
It's terrible. It's like I just want to like yell at him like constantly. Like I get it. Like you hate women, okay? Like like it's like 5 minutes into his movies, like so obvious, and it just like labors the point to like where I feel it comes off like very childish, and I just as a rule normally can't like stand him, but I know a lot of people get stuff like out of his films, and I do need to still watch The House That Jack Built, but before I finalize my opinion on him.
It's good. I mean, I can kind of agree with some of the pretentiousness of that, which is Lars von Trier. But The House that Jack Built has a good cast, and it has some good gore to it, too. It's really good gore. And it's just it's a fucked up movie, so it's entertaining in that right. But it does still have a little bit of that Lars von Trier pretentiousness.
Well, he can't resist, right? That's like his whole thing, Yeah. You got to put that in there.
So what about the ones that you do like? Hereditary, Witch, It Comes at Night, It Follows. What do you like about these?
What I do like about them is I'd say at the top, they have those like real-time scares like we were talking about. A lot of them have stuff that it's not relying on the jump scare, which is great. I like that those types of movies also are very much diving into like what it means to be human and like how just like fucked up we are in our own minds, in our heads, and getting like lost in your own headspace and how scary and ugly that can be. I mean, the most terrifying things, for example, like in Hereditary, are just like their reactions after the daughter's death. I mean, it's ugly and it's honest and it's very raw, and you connect with it like as a viewer because if you've ever experienced like a death of a loved one, like it's not pretty. you know and
Yeah.
you process it in like a very like gross way. And so I thought that was really cool that movie allowed for those like performances to come out, and like very unique and very separate performances. And I feel like all those movies just really allow these actors to explore characters in a very in-depth way. And I appreciate that because I think for a long time, even in horror, we weren't really great with character development.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was usually like the jock or pretty kids that are out in the woods fucking, so of course they get killed, or then you have your asshole or your freak kids. But no, I see what you mean. You're right with like Hereditary and other films that in recent couple of years. There's a lot more character development. You see those people like Peter and oh god, what was the Charlie, and they're people with characteristics and backstories, not just like, hey bro, I like football, so I'm gonna die.
Yeah. And I mean, and those movies are fun, but it was a breath of fresh air to see directors like seemingly actually give a shit about character development, and and then just paying attention to their shots too. I was actually just having this conversation with Marcus the other day. Even some of the most beloved horror movies, when you go and you look at them objectively, I'm like, they're not shot well.
Yeah. Or they're just shot generically. Like there's nothing that pops out. No depth of field shots or push pulls or anything like that. It's just like, okay, we have a wide angle, a wide angle, a wide angle. There's a wide angle.
Yeah, but this is all getting away from the emotional content of the stuff,
Yeah, I guess. Well, no, because the proper footage or the proper shot or angle will evoke certain emotions. Like if you have an extreme close up on someone's eyeball where you can actually see the veins inside the eye bulging,
it can. Emotions. But what I'm saying is, you're talking about a negative existence of something. What I'm saying is, yes, okay, so it doesn't evoke the emotions, but we're getting away from talking about what does evoke the emotions. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right. As far as like examples in media and adulthood, that's where we're at still.
Yeah.
So you mentioned non-telegraph scares, what it means to be human, ugly, honest reactions. Anything else meaningful to you in these movies?
The atmosphere, like allowing for like production design and lighting to really like do their job, and like really selling sense of space, so like the Vitch, they authentically like made that house that they shot in. Like they used the same materials and the same processes that they would have back then, so it really gave this authenticity to what you're like watching, and it sucks you in more as like a viewer, and that's the kind of stuff that like makes me like want to do better in my work. I mean, obviously there's always budget limitations, and if we all had like $10 million, we could do everything, but just
that's a micro budget.
Yeah, I think that it just makes you really examine like your own craft in this way. That's like, when you hit on all of those notes, it's very meaningful, like as a viewer, because you feel very like deeply connected to what you're watching.
Did you mentioned starting to have a community in your teenage years? Did that follow through into your adult years? Do you have a group of friends and family that are into this? I mean, I think Marcus, but other than
Marcus.
I
think like finding, just other filmmakers, like horror filmmakers, you tend to eat, sleep, and breathe it, so it's definitely like a part of your life, and then, being married to Marcus, I mean, we have like, the very similar taste, like in everything, so there's no like, having to justify whatever fucking film you want to watch that day, you know.
Right.
There's no like compromise like on the TV, you know, like no one's making the other like, you know, watch like something dumb.
Right.
So I've definitely like that sense of community has followed into my adult life, and it's pretty cool.
Okay. Any legitimately scary things happen for you as an adult?
Like my life is pretty like my actual life is pretty passive at this point, which is really cool. I think my 20s were like turbulent. There's just like a lot of stuff like kind of like going on like during that time.
As the 20s usually are.
Yeah, you know, that decade where you get past it and you're like, haha, I survived that, you know. And
I missed my 20s. I was invincible.
Right. And but nothing that was like now in my 30s, I think life is like really calm, and there is nothing that's like really scary in my life except for like the things that like I'm getting paid to create.
Nice.
So I'm really okay with that. That's a good thing.
That's fine. No is an acceptable answer. A lot of the questions that we have here are not going to be for every guest. You know, we have them because you never know who's going to connect with which question, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Any scary dreams as an adult?
Actually, no. Gosh, I guess I'm kind of boring as an adult.
Yeah, I mean, that's what kind of happens. As an adult, you get less and less in the subconscious fantastical mind, and you're more like, you know, what scares you as an adult? I don't know, taxes, bills, viruses.
I was gonna say I might have stress dreams about paying like a mortgage now, but I do think like to kind of bring it around, I guess. What is going on right now is very scary, and
Yeah,
I
that's
guess
a real life fear as an adult.
Yeah, I'm still not used to addressing the current pandemic as something that's actually happening. Like there's a sense of disconnect, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Same here. Like I get the terror and badness, for lack of a better term, of it.
It's still outdoors because it hasn't necessarily affected anybody personally yet.
Yeah.
And it's not airborne. That's a good thing too.
Yeah.
Glad for that.
But in some senses, it feels like we're living in a weird version of a horror movie now, you know, because
it does.
Like we're all effectively like locked in our house for the most part, unless, you know, you have to be out of it. And like you can't like, you know, hang out with like your neighbors, you know, anymore, or like people like from across town, and you can't like travel anymore. And every day there's like,
and the people in charge refuse to listen to the scientists.
Yeah, that does happen a lot. And that's, oh my god, are we gonna get overrun by zombies? This is a preparation for zombies, isn't it? They're just having everybody stay inside because they know whoever's outside is going to turn into a zombie because it's fucking Night of the Comet.
It is. It is Night of the Comet. and that's like so surreal, and it is like a freaking nightmare. So I guess that I will go back slightly on what I said, and in the last month it's been pretty like terrifying every day. Because
I just want to open my box of skulls.
Like you got a box of stuff like you can't even open, and that's totally like legit. And then I mean, we don't even know when we're gonna go.
I just want to open my box of skulls. When can we go back to normalcy?
Right? When can we go back to normal times when I could just open up a box that I got in the mail and check out the cool skulls that came in it?
I feel you. I want us to have that back too. You know?
So, looking back over your life, and the question I'm about to ask is not related to horror, just overall. And I'm not asking what is your favorite movie. I'm asking what movie have you watched more times than any other?
Oh, that's a good one.
Like Desert Island movie.
Yeah, I actually watch a lot of the same movies over and over again.
Yep, we all have them. Like that one that you can just throw on before you go to bed. Like, yeah, this one. I've seen it enough times. I can watch it 117,000th time. Yeah,
I have like about 20 movies like that.
So which one do you think you have watched the most?
Yes.
It is a toss-up because I'm legitimately not entirely certain. Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
It has to be, if it isn't the one, it has to be very close to being the one, because I do put that on to fall asleep to constantly. Ironically,
Yes.
I fall
The
asleep
irony
to
is not lost.
yeah, 19, and like the little like song comes on, and I'm like out like before the intro.
Like one of the most, I'm sure that's the thing that terrifies a lot of people about that movie, and that's the thing that you're like, bedtime.
Yeah, and I fall asleep.
It's a lullaby.
Funny sidebar note. One time was because I do this like a lot. Like I have like this rotating cast of movies, and another one. I know I haven't seen it as much as Nightmare on Elm Street, but another bedtime movie is Hellraiser.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dating someone one time, and we're trying to fall asleep, so I put on Hellraiser. So I
He's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?"
I've done the same thing. I have done the same exact thing.
They had never seen it, and so it kept them
okay,
up.
not the same exact thing.
It kept them like up all night, and they were just like, I like passed out like within 5 minutes, and they were just like, "That's the most fucked up movie," and I was just like, "Oh, that's like nothing." Like,
wait, what? You haven't seen it? Oh, okay, cool. Did you like the part with the skeleton? No. All right.
Okay,
sorry.
I'm going to bed now. Good night.
So yeah, I'm like really bad about that. So yeah, it would be it'd be Nightmare on Elm Street or or like Wayne's World are probably the two that I've like watched.
Okay.
Okay. No, that's. I mean, they're both classics.
Well, I mean, I asked the question the way I word it specifically because sometimes the answer to that question will give you some additional piece of information that wouldn't have come out otherwise.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be a horror movie. Like, I mean, it can be Wayne's World.
Yeah, and Wayne's World wouldn't have come up in the interview had we not asked that question.
Nah, it's not exactly a horror movie.
So, what do you like about Wayne's World?
It's Tia Carrere, isn't it?
What's that?
I said, it's Tia
Carrere, what do you like about?
Oh yeah.
So, do you see any common threads about what kinds of horror you like? Cannibalism, occult, metaphysical?
Yeah, they're like a common thread.
I would say supernatural.
Okay.
I tend to like lean pretty heavily like towards it without even like trying.
Like the bitch. Yeah.
And so supernatural is probably like the biggest common thread, with a close second being like a creature feature, because I definitely like a good monster.
Yeah.
What do you think you like about the supernatural or the monsters over the other kinds of horror?
I think supernatural, because there's always like a component of it like where, ooh, this could actually happen. Even if you don't really believe that, it's like, oh, but it still could happen, right? Because it's still kind of based in the world that you're living in. So I think that that's like very appealing to me. And then with the monsters, it's just like it's just fun. I'm in it for like the creature design. I love looking at like a good monster. That's a treat.
So
talk about some Rick Baker werewolves up in here.
Oh yeah.
I have to say, it's very funny, and you wouldn't know this, but Chris and I do. The very last person that we interviewed said that they didn't like Supernatural, that they liked other things because it was more likely to happen. And now you're saying, I like the Supernatural because that's more likely to happen. It's like, wait, what?
I know. That's why I chuckled there. Like, wait a minute. That's exact. I mean, I get it, because maybe by sheer math, it's more likely to happen because the natural has already happened. Therefore, the leftover is the supernatural. But yeah, that's exactly what our last guest said was the opposite of that, which was he liked things that were more based in like psycho killers or real life just human evilness, because that's more realistic.
And
whereas
like,
supernatural,
no, that's not realistic. Like angels and devils are more realistic than that.
I'm like, I'm more likely to see a ghost than get like killed by like a Ted Bundy. So that's what.
So the last question left is why horror? So let's review some of the things that we've talked about here so far. in childhood, you had comedy and makeup, the dress up part of it that you really enjoyed. In your teenage years, there was the escapism, ostensibly from small town drama and religion and things like that. So there was some rebellion. Also, community in both in the teenage years and the adult years. And in the adult years, kind of going into what it means to be human, the honest reactions, character development, and things like that. But why horror? And what I mean by that is, for example, for character design or creature design or special effects, you could go into sci-fi. For character development, it could have been drama. What is it about horror in specific that attracts you?
Yeah.
I think that just because of the way that I was raised, it's still always going to be like the forbidden thing.
Okay,
Even though it's not anymore. I'm going to be 36 in like a few months, so obviously, like, I'm my own person now. But it's that forbidden. It's like, it's the dark side of the pool. It's the, like, weird thing that you're not like supposed to be into. And I think that it will always get me. It's in my heart, and it will always excite me. It will always kind of feel like something I shouldn't be doing, but that I really want to be doing. So, yeah, I guess I just never lost like that part of it, and so that's why horror for me.
Possibly a personal question here. You can tell me if I get too close, but was there something about the small town reality that you couldn't be honest about until you left that?
When you say couldn't be honest about, like, is there anything that I've ever like not said about like living in a small town?
You could answer it that way. I'll tell you what, if you want to answer it that way, tell me yes or no, and if it's no, then I'll explain to you more about what I'm thinking.
I will say no because I'm curious about a further explanation.
I knew I shouldn't have said. I knew you were going to do that. So I dated a girl who had come from a small town for a while, and for better or worse, like it or not, depending on where you live, you're potentially related to half of the county. So everybody knows everybody. So you have to learn how to be very political about who you say to whom and all that kind of shit. So I was wondering if that affected your sense of, this taboo and the rebellion and, things that couldn't be said until you got out of there. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it totally does. I actually think it had less to do with like the small town specifically, and that's more directed directly at religion. Actually, to clarify, yeah.
Okay.
I actually, ironically, like moved back to the small town that I grew up in. So
that always happens. You try and get away, but some kind of scene.
They just keep pulling you back.
Came back, and everybody in the town like knows like what we do. That we're like the weird special effects movie people.
Which is fine.
And we're the good house at Halloween time because I was like, that was very important to me, like load the kids up with candy, make sure you're the cool people at Halloween, So now I think we're just like the eccentric weirdos of the town, which is good for them.
Did you move back to the same town that you came from or a different one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same town. So same small town. But so I guess any like ill will that I felt towards the town, like specifically, like faded, and the rebellion component that I speak on is directly related to religion. And so that's something that I've never like made any kind of like peace with, like whatsoever. And I blame religion for lots of stuff. So yeah, specifically that rebellion.
Is that something you feel comfortable talking about or no?
Oh yeah, I mean I can talk about how the church is ate up like all day.
That's a very extensive topic right there. Yeah, we can talk about that all day.
Yes.
Theology, lack thereof, atheism.
Yeah, I mean I identify as like satanic now, so definitely was that person who like went to the other end of the spectrum, very willingly.
Are you a card-carrying member? Do you have a certificate hanging on your wall? Because I'm looking at a certificate and I get a card in my wallet right now.
I am actually on both accounts. Yes. Yeah. So no, that's something like I feel very, very strongly about, and so yeah, that's definitely the rebellion.
No, completely understand. So I guess if we were to try to summarize your affinity for horror into one word, it'd probably be the rebellion, although I understand it is probably more complex than just that. But it's interesting because, rebellion can take a lot of different flavors. So in your case, maybe it's against religion. I think, Chris, that was kind of a key thing for you too.
Yep.
And also against religion, I think specifically, honestly. I remember we had another guest who was rebellion might have been their biggest thing, but I don't remember what it was they were rebelling against.
Nah, it's just the general premise of rebellion. I mean, that's going to be a common thread, I think, with a lot of our guests, I bet, because that's what the allure of it is, and all the video nasties, horrors, Cat 3, whatever. It's that whole, this is bad, and you shouldn't do it. Well, I'm going to do it now. is the natural reaction. It's just, push resistance is.
Yeah, you can say that, but rebellion is still sort of an overarching topic that can have multiple causes underneath it.
True. And there is the other aspect of not just rebellion, but what's the actual draw and attraction of it in the first place.
Well, that's true too. So you've got the positive attracting thing, and then you can also have something that's pushing you away from something else. In Jessie's case, it sounds like the attraction was to things like the makeup and the community and character development and honesty there, and the, can't think of the right word for a moment there, but the thing pushing her away was she was moving away from the religion stuff, which was, from the sounds of it, I'm guessing probably less honest to her.
Yeah, I absolutely. I'd say like you definitely nailed that, like, as an assessment, and it was so weird and contradictory to me, because it's like, you have the Christian church, and it's supposed to be loving and caring and, like, there for you, and, like, they're like the Jesus representatives on earth, and everything is supposed to be like for your benefit, but it's not what it's like, almost the exact opposite, in fact. Seeing that, like, hypocrisy and the dishonesty, like, I picked up on that, like, I think at a way too young age than most kids would. It's like, well, wait a minute, you say that you're this, but you're, like, really mean to that person, or you say you're this, but you're making excuses if it's in, like, your own community, and it really made me, like, super resentful, like, of it, and I'm like, I'd rather something just sort of tell it like it is and be like, this is clearly, like, a bad thing, and we're saying that it's bad, rather than, oh, well, that person was, like, a member of the church, so, we're gonna make XYZ excuse for them, but, that person who's a drug addict, we're gonna, like, lash out at them. I mean, just all of it. It doesn't make any kind of sense. I know that there's probably the people out there who would point that there's, not all churches or whatever are like that, but this is just my overwhelming experience that I had for the last 35 years,
Yeah. Well, like you said, not every church is like that. Not every person is like that. But there are a lot that are out there like that. I don't think I've said it yet on this call, but I know I've said on other episodes that, people in general, there are some things in life that are black and white, and then there are other things that are shades of gray. And different people have different tolerances for being able to handle shades of gray. Some people can handle a lot of life being shades of gray, and some people don't have any tolerance for that at all. Life is much easier for them when everything is black and white. All over not just the country, but all over the world, there are some people running churches and congregants of churches who life is much easier for them when everything is black and white. But it also makes life harder for the people in those congregations who aren't like that and do see the shades of gray. In your case is probably you, and definitely was me as well. I was raised by a very religious grandmother, and for her, there were a lot of things that were black and white that for me were not, and that caused some conflict between the two of us. So
I think sometimes too, and this is an idea that I've been kicking around a lot is that sometimes like rebellion is almost like a survivalist thing too.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah, it
Oh,
can
it
be
definitely
thought of
is.
as a survival instinct reflex, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
because it's like if that stuff's gonna swallow you whole, you have to like get away from it as far as like you can.
It's a good example of something I've been thinking about for years too. Like, and just to, I mean, if you think about picturing a group of goats on the side of a mountain and a huge boulder comes tumbling down, the goats on the mountain have a choice. They can either go north, south, east, west, or stand still. And you don't know where the boulder is going to hit. Nobody knows where the boulder is going to hit. And from life's point of view, life's best interest is to create a diverse group of animals where everybody's going to there's going to be at least one that wants to choose each one of those options, because from life's point of view, if you all go left and the boulder goes left, life dies. But or if it splits and some goes left and some go right, well, at least the one in the middle who stood still might live. And not just from a religious point of view, but even political. I mean, the conservative left or right, to me, I'd be great if the rest of the world could come to an understanding of not only should we be respecting each other's positions, but to come to a point of understanding we need your other positions, because you know what? During some particular situation, you might be right. In a different particular position, I might be right. And the only way the human race is going to survive is by having both of us around, because, this time I might die, this time you might die. But, hopefully between the two, we'll persevere,
There is no yin without the yang, man. Like, bruh, you have to have the object to cast the shadow, and then you have to have the light to cast the shadow with
there is no spoon.
Man.
There is no
spoon. There is definitely a third glass of Jameson, though, which is my excuse for my actions. Fourth glass.
So thank you, Jessie, for joining us.
Yes, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I forget exactly what it was you started to pitch at the beginning, but do you want to pitch it again before we close the call?
Beyond Horror, the documentary that I directed with Marcus Cook.
We'll have some links to that at the website. So thank you again to you, Jessie, and for anybody out there listening. Please do come visit us at horrormakesushappy.com. We'll have a schedule posted there to show who we're interviewing, as well as a list of people, a list of people we'd like to interview. If you can help us connect with any of those people, or if you know anybody who we should add to the list, let us know. Can also become a Patreon supporter. Link to our social media in general. Just come let us know how we're doing. HorrorMakesUsHappy.com.